Hi my friends, how are you? My name is Daniel Villarino. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Until today, I have been using to sharpen my tools a bench grinder with the typical wheels. Basically, they are stones. One of them is the one that came with the grinder. The grinder came with two, one of 36 grit and the other I think it was 80 grit or 60 grit. That's the one I left in the grinder. The 36 I removed it because it was too much for sharpening my tools. And I replaced it by aluminum oxide wheel that is the one that I have now. There is 180 grit. That's better to get a better edge on the tool. Now, this grinder has several problems, and the main one is that when you apply the tool on the surface that is rotating, it generates grooves because the material gets consumed. And when that happens, and it also deposits some metal particles on the surface, so those metal particles begin to generate more friction against the tool, and that generates heat. And heat is not good when you are sharpening. You want to keep the heat as low as possible, because if you generate too much heat when you are applying the tool against the stone, it will lose the tempering of the steel, and it will not hold the edge for that long. Basically, once you get that bluish coloration on the edge, forget it. That is no good. That edge is not going to maintain there, and as soon as you apply it to the wood, a couple of passes and it will be lost. So you will have to work on removing that blue part, which means that you are wasting material from the tool. Okay. The other disadvantage is that once in a while, and probably you should do it every time that you're going to sharpen something, you have to use this type of tool that has diamond here to true up the face of the wheel. And I did it every couple of times. I used the machine, the grinder, and as you can see in these images, the amount of dust that generated was amazing. And not only that, I have a vacuum working, next to the grinder, and also air circulator with a filter, but still this is a dust that is very thin, is abrasive, and is not really good for the lungs. And I don't want to have it, even though I use a mask the whole time almost that I am in the workshop. But for the periods of time that I am not using the mask, I don't want to get this kind of dust inside my lungs. So the other disadvantage is also that the size of these stones keep decreasing with time. And when the size decreases, what happens is that you lose the setup that you had for sharpening your tools. And you have to readjust all the measurings so that the profile and the angle that you have in the tool remains the same. Because of the decreasing of the diameter, you lose that and you have to redo the setup. Okay, so those are some of the disadvantages that these wheels had. And I thought, and I watched some other videos, and I decided to follow the example of Mike Walt and Miguel Sanchez. Mike Walt and Miguel Sanchez, both of them had switched from the traditional grinding stones to the new system, which is the CBN wheels. They have been around for a while, but they are relatively new. And I want to put their links to their videos here because I recommend that you watch them. They have a lot of information about these grinding systems, and they are excellent videos. So please go there and take a look at them. I will probably repeat some of the material that is there in this video, but they have done a great job. So the new wheels that I'm going to install are these wheels. These are called CBN wheels. CBN stands for cubic boron nitrate, and I got two of them. One is 80 grit, the other one is 220 grit. And the CBN is the second hardest material after diamond. And you may say, well, why not use diamond wheels? And actually there are diamond wheels. But the problem with diamond is that at certain temperatures it gets destroyed. And the CBN is stable at much higher temperatures. So these wheels are actually more durable. CBN is used a lot in several applications, perforations, etc., where very hard materials are needed. One of the advantages of these wheels is that they are not going to lose their shape. They are going to remain at the same diameter. You don't have to throw them up, so you are not going to generate that much dust. They are well balanced. The other advantage is because they are metal, in the surface, when you apply the tool against the surface that is grinding, the heat that generates, which is going to be less than in the case of the stones, but the heat that generates can go through the wheel and radiate outside. So metal is a much faster heat conductor and electricity conductor than stone, so that these should work at much lower temperatures than the stone ones. I got myself this bench grinder that you are seeing inside the box here. It's a slow speed. Basically, the call low speed is 1,750 RPMs. That's about half of the previous one that I was using, which will run at 3,600 RPMs. So I am going to install this new grinder with the new wheels, and that will be my new system inside the workshop. And I'm not going to get rid of the old one. I'm going to put it in my garage and basically have it there, because those stones are really good. Particularly the 36 grit, I'm going to reinstall it in the other one. Those two are very good when you have to remove a lot of material in a hurry. And it's not a problem whether you have an edge or not, or losing the tempering of the material. When those things are not problems, then these work great, and so I'm going to keep them. But in my garage I don't have space here, and I'm going to have these here close to my lathe, so once in a while I touch up the edge of the tool and I can get back to work. So that's today's project. Let's get to work. Here I realized that to remove the grinder, it was better to gain easier access to the bolts and nuts that have it attached to the workbench. So I'm going to remove the guards and also the stones, and this same process I will have to do with the new grinder, so I am not going to repeat it later. The first step is to remove the 3 screws of the external guards. Now I can remove the stones, and we have to take into consideration that while the one on the right has a normal thread, the one on the left has a reverse thread. I I place back the nuts in the shaft, mostly because I don't want to confuse the normal one with the reverse thread one, and also not to lose them. And now I have access to the 3 small bolts that keep the guards attached to the grinder. So I'm going to remove them to remove the protections. Finally, I have gained access to the bolts that maintain the grinder attached to the workbench, and I am going to remove them so that I can free the grinder. Okay, just remove the old grinder, the high-speed one, and I got out of the box the new one, the slow-speed grinder. And one thing that for sure I need to do is to remove these guards and also these stones, because I am not going to use them. And the guards are not needed because in this case sometimes these stones may disintegrate, a piece can fly through the air, but that's the reason for which these guards are important. For the metal stones, there's no chance that that's going to happen because they are metal, and also they won't fit inside these guards, so I had to remove them anyway. So what I'm going to do, like I did in the case of the high-speed grinder, I'm going to remove these screws to take this lid off, and then remove the stones and remove the other part of the guards. I just remove the guards, I remove the stones, and I got it just bare with the axis only. I just connected it to the power. What I'm going to do now is turn it on and see if it vibrates or has any problems without a load. As you can see, it runs very smooth. There's no movement in the axis and no vibration, so it's ready to put on the bench. I had to measure the distance between the 2 orifices here to make new perforations on the bench for this one. Okay, so now I am going to measure the distance between these 2 holes to make the perforations on the table, and they are about 6 inches and 3/8 apart, which is basically 162 millimeters. When I made this setup for the previous grinder, I put this block of wood here, is screwed to the tabletop to raise the level of the grinder a little bit, so that I can put these components. And basically I make sure that this face here was parallel to this face here, and also that these components of the jig were perpendicular to this face here. So basically now that I had to find the new holes positions, I just will measure from this border to the middle distance and then mark them in the positions that I just measured. new out of the box. It has some rust here in the axis, so I am going to clean it with a 600 grit sandpaper, because otherwise the wheel does not go all the way in as it should. Okay, the axes are clean now, and what I am going to do is mount the wheels with a set of washers that come with them, and they are this one, which is a flat washer, and this goes on the inside like that, and then I have this ball and socket washer. There is an spheric concavity in here and a spheric convexity in there. I don't know if you can appreciate that, hopefully you can, but the idea is that when you are tightening the nut, this goes like this on the outside of the wheel. When you are tightening the nut here, sometimes the nut may produce a tilt of the wheel in one direction or another, not leaving it perfectly perpendicular. And these ball and socket washers allow for a better centering of the wheel in the axis. So I am going to do the installation now. Okay, I installed both wheels, the 80 grit and the 220 grit, and they look really good. Let me show you something. At this point, the grinder is not attached to the workbench by any means. Look at this. It runs so smooth. It's very well balanced. It doesn't have any vibration. The noise, the other one was very noisy. So I am really happy with this, and what I am going to do now is to readjust the position here for the setup of the grinding jigs. In Spanish, we have a saying that goes something like this: for every bad thing that happens, normally a good one will follow. The thing is that in this case, a thing that I didn't take into consideration was that the width of these wheels is actually 1.5 inches, and the wheels that I had before were 1 inch each. So I had half an inch on each side, and actually when I put it in the holes that I just made, they got perfectly centered on the places where the jigs go. So I didn't have to do any major modification here. I just tightened the screws there, and you can take a look. It runs very smooth. What I'm going to do now is just try and sharpen something. Okay? Before doing any sharpening, I'm going to use this face mask. Okay, I'm going to sharpen this ball gouge. I have marked in black all the profile, so that once I place it in the jig, I'm going to try and see if it is in the angle that I need. And I'm going to use this jig. I'm going to place it here, and the distance I have from here to the border is exactly 2 inches. So basically I press it against that point there and tighten. And this should be very simple, but first what I'm going to do is place it here in the position and just move the wheel by hand a little bit backwards like this. And as you can see, I mark just a point here at the base of the profile. That means that I have to lower the tip a bit, and to lower it I had to move this in this direction, so I had to separate it a little bit more. Let's do that. Let's try there and see what happens. There, much better. You see, that's what you want, to have a mark that goes all the way from the base of the profile to the tip. So this is the right angle. Now to sharpen is very easy. I'm going to turn on the machine and then just give it a pass in this direction like this, and then switch to the other place and do it in the other direction like that, and that should be it. Look at that. Wow, it really feels sharp. I cannot wait to use it. Okay, my friends, I am really happy with these new CBN wheels. They look to work really well. I think the sharp edge that generates is much better quality than the previous stones. When I was sharpening before, one of the things that I noticed is that when I applied the edge of the tool against the stone, I had a little bit of a vibration, and that was something that I don't think it produced a very good edge. With this one, the movement was very uniform and continuous, no trepidation or anything like that. They ran really smooth, and I can't wait to use them on a project. I am running a project in parallel. I have something there in store, a blank that is soaking in something, and I'm going to present it in a different video. But perhaps if I can show you some images of how the tool freshly sharpened with this new system works, I will put them at the end of this video. So for the moment, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If that's the case, please don't forget to mark the like button down below, make comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please do so. That way every time I upload a new video, you are going to receive a notification. And it will be until the next one. Cheers!